What's up, guys? It's Nicholas, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about something that it's a question that plagues a lot of new system builders, and that is how much RAM do you really need for your new gaming PC? I'm just going to be testing for games because I know obviously like a lot of productivity stuff utilizes a lot more RAM than what a game would use. For example, like Adobe Premiere, it'll use more RAM using the RAM preview. That kind of thing we're not testing for. We're just doing gaming stuff. So let's do it. So first off, I do want to state that I have never personally built a desktop PC with less than 16 gigabytes of RAM. I have always had 16. My first pre-built, 16. First computer that, I mean, obviously I've had older computers that I didn't know what was in them that I'm sure had 2 gigabytes of RAM. So, but anything I've built and anything I've really gamed heavily on has had 16 gigabytes of RAM. So I can't talk to the knowledge of that kind of stuff. But if you look on forums, you'll see just arguments, and it's kind of gone away recently because games are starting to take as much as they're actually recommending. Because before they'd recommend 8 gigabytes of RAM, and you wouldn't even use that. It wouldn't come anywhere close. And actually, one of our games on this list kind of shows that. But then we also have games that show otherwise than that too. So, let's just get right into this. All of this testing will be done on Orion. Okay, just swapping out RAM. 7700K for the processor. 1070 from it's the Asus Strix 1070. Neither of those are overclocked. Factory speeds. And the same thing for the memory. 2133 megahertz is all we're going to be running on the RAM. I didn't want to put overclocking into this. That will be a completely separate video. I'll talk about that later. But I just wanted to test RAM, available RAM. Like if the amount of RAM we had would affect our performance in games. And just for reference, I am not doing this on a clean install of Windows. I am doing this on my daily driver, which is Orion, obviously. Has about 3,000 megabytes of RAM usage from just programs that are open. I had the same amount of programs open every time, but I wanted to, because obviously no one's going to have a clean install of Windows forever, and I don't have like tons of stuff installed that uses up memory, but I do have like Discord, like Microsoft stuff that opens up in the background, like that kind of thing. So keep that in mind as we go through these. And the games I'll be testing are, of course, Ghost Recon, everyone's favorite game to test. Far Cry 4, because I wanted to throw something in there that was a little bit older, but not super old. And then, of course, Witcher 3, just because I wanted to throw a curveball in there. And Witcher 3 is one of those weird games that benefits and doesn't benefit from the stuff you'd think it does. And it's a weird game, so I wanted to try that one. So first off, and I do have notes over here to the side. So if I look over here, it's because I'm reading off my notes and off the charts. Because I don't want to state any of this wrong. But first off, Ghost Recon Wildlands at 4 gigs of RAM, 1440p, very high settings. Unsurprisingly, it did the worst. 46 FPS with terrible stuttering. I'm not talking like micro stutter. I'm talking vomit-inducing freezing. It was bad. And it wasn't consistent either. It wasn't like the da-da-da-da-da. It was like the da-da-da-da. Yeah, it was terrible. It was really unplayable. Going up to 8 gigs, it got better with an increase of FPS. Still not quite 60, but no stuttering, which makes the game a lot more playable for a lot of people. 16 gigs of RAM, we did get another FPS boost to over 60. About 63 is what we were sitting at, which you guys can see on the graphs. But when moving up to 32 gigs of RAM, we only saw 1 FPS increase from 16, which to me is in the margin of error. I'm not going to count that as oh look, it benefited from it, but it didn't hurt it, because I know some people have said that actually some games will run worse with more available RAM. So just something to keep in mind. Far Cry 4 performed super well at 4 gigs. 1440p ultra settings, to my disbelief, 88 FPS. And it felt really smooth. It wasn't micro stuttery. It wasn't jumpy. It felt really smooth compared to Wildlands, which that's not saying much, but you know. Moving up to 8 gigs, we didn't see an FPS increase at all, but the memory usage did go up from 3200 to 4900. So it did utilize more RAM. I don't know if in different areas it would have gotten choppy. On the benchmark run that I was doing, I did a certain run that took about 3 minutes. I didn't see any change in FPS. I didn't see any change in like smoothness. Felt good all around. Moving on to 16 gigs, we saw a small bump in FPS, but another 1 FPS bump at 32 that I'm calling, again, margin of error. Actually, if all you're going to play is Far Cry 4, really, I guess you could just go with 4 gigs of RAM, but, you know, I don't think that's going to benefit you in the long run. Last but not least, we do have Witcher 3 at 1080p because I'm a noob and forgot to switch the resolution back to 1440p after streaming the other day at high settings. But so it's not 1440p, it's 1080p high settings. 4 gigs of RAM, we got 97 FPS, and again, we have a 1 FPS increase going to 8 gigs of RAM, which again, I'm not going to count as any win. That was just the average frame. 16 gigabytes, we were sitting at 102 FPS, and then it actually dropped down to 100 on average after bumping it up to 32 gigs. So once again, margin of error, but like I said, I did run these tests a couple times. These were averages between all the averages of those tests. That does make me think that Witcher 3 might be one of those games that almost hurts it a little bit in performance-wise when you bump it up in RAM. So just, again, keep that in mind. Grain of salt, all of this. Wrapping this up, what did I personally learn after all this testing? Well, first of all, I don't like swapping out RAM this much because I actually messed up the testing. I had to go back and redo a bunch of it, so I ended up having to swap out a whole bunch of the RAM again. And it's not in a test bench, it's in a closed case. And so I had it closed every time, I had to open it back up, pull the RAM up. It was just, I'm getting a test bench set up. I really want to get a test bench set up probably soon as I can. Anyways, back to what I learned. I was surprised how little RAM Far Cry 4 needed to run smoothly. That really impressed me. I don't know why that is. And then on the other hand, Ghost Recon, where you drop down to 4 gigs and it's almost completely unplayable because of the stutter. I'm not surprised about that. I actually thought all of the games would perform very terribly at 4 gigs of RAM. But like I said, Far Cry 4, at least in the area that I was testing it, did awesome. I guess the next thing for me to test would be RAM speed and see if that makes any difference. And if you guys do have any want for me to show how all this stuff affects like Adobe Premiere CC, different like editing suites, I can do that too. Just let me know if you guys have any interest, because obviously these videos take time to make. I don't mind making them. I love making this content, but if nobody wants to see it, I don't really want to make it. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any interest in seeing that. And that pretty much wraps up the video, guys. Definitely leave a comment if you guys have any other suggestions on videos I should do. Leave the video a like if you liked it. Leave a dislike if you disliked it. Let me know why you disliked it. Let me know in the comments what I did wrong. What I did that angered you so much. Well, who hurt you? Who hurt you? Anyways, guys, if you're not subscribed already, make sure you subscribe. Don't forget Twitter and Instagram down in the description. Trying to grow those platforms. Trying to grow those platforms as much as I can. And yeah, I can't do that without you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.